Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Aparuta de sangamatassa tawara ye sodavanta bamunchantu satang. So we have the remainder of this month of March, this winter's retreat, and so this is to determine to really penetrate, to put the kind of effort in, because sometimes when we can just use time to kill time, or waste it, or get carried away with all kinds of distractions. So I encourage you to really make this determination to use this month as kind of like a continuous reminding, Paccuppanna Dhamma, here and now. So this Pali phrase, Paccuppanna Dhamma, the reality of now, is something to really hold on to, as not as some kind of doctrine, but reminding you. Because we do get carried away by our own emotions, habits, feelings, worldly pressures. There's so much urgency, or important things, or crises, or the world is filled with this sense of urgency. The musts and shoulds and these imperatives, worldly imperatives, can really intimidate us. So in my own practice, being in a position that I'm in as a senior bhikkhu, one is subjected to a lot of this kind of pressure, to urgence, what's important, what we have to do, what we need to face, the future. What's the future of the Sangha? The future of monastic life, future of Buddhism, and on like this. So that these kind of urgent messages, or commands, or imperatives, if you don't really understand or have a sense of Paccuppanna Dhamma, then it's easy to get carried away. Righteous causes. Watch that sense of righteousness in yourself, of how things should be, what's right, and what's fair, and what's just, because we can really grasp these kind of concepts and dedicate our lives towards causes, towards righteous causes, without awakening to Dhamma, and forgetting all about here and now, Paccuppanna Dhamma. So that's why the reflective ability of the human individual is the refuge, because we can observe no matter how intimidated we become by the world, or how much pressure is placed on us by worldly values, or how much old habits arise, or fears and sense of self-worth or worthlessness or whatever. It's always here and now. The conditions, personality, emotional habits will arise according to the conditions. They have no independent quality of their own. The self-view, the sakkaya ditthi, the ego, it arises and ceases according to the conditions that you're experiencing. And yet we can assume, I could, so much of my life before becoming a monk was based on the assumption that I am the same person all the time. It's just an assumption, I'm actually this person with this body, this nationality, this gender, these abilities or lack of abilities, all the ways we create ourselves through our attachments to the conditions, to the memories, to views and opinions. And so there's a sense of it, like I am really this person, is what I really am, is this personality, this body, this kind of person. Notice how strong identities become in the world. Like Sister Nambodi was telling me, coming back from California, where the sexual inclinations are so strongly identified. When you apply for going on a retreat at Spirit Rock, you have to mark what kind of sexual tendencies you have. They have, this is kind of private information that they have little squares that you check off, whether you're heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, or transsexual. Now this sounds really ridiculous to me, because this is an identity that you acquire. And the more you operate, never questioning if that's your identity, how you present yourself to the world or the society, or how you see yourself, it's through sexuality or through the gender, being male or female, then that's how you're going to experience life. You're limited to that perspective. It's not because it's not Dhamma, it's merely identity to a perception. And these become obsessions or righteous causes with the political right or the political left, or with race or nationality, with religion. We can become very attached to our religious identity, or attached to the idea that there's no religion, or that all religions are wrong or foolish. Whatever view and opinion we have, no matter how right it might seem, it is what it is in the present. It arises and ceases according to the conditions, like sexual inclinations, sexual habit tendencies. When you really look at it, the conditions for those kind of memories, that kind of tendency arise according to other conditions. It has no independent, solid basis in itself. It's merely a habit that one becomes attached to. And this is, it's not like we shouldn't have any attachments, but the point of the Buddhist teaching is to see what attachment is, the result of attaching to conditioned phenomena. And this you have to find out for yourself. What is the result when you attach to anything? Being a bhikkhu, or a siladhara, or a man or a woman, or English or Scottish, or Thai, or whatever. When one is attached to these perceptions, does it bring peace, bliss, happiness, joy, or does it bring up other conditions? If you're attached to nationality, then you've got national prejudices. Every nation, every ethnic group has prejudices against other groups. It's part of the conditioning process. So whatever you attach to, if it's good or right, or even it's bad or wrong, the attachment out of ignorance is the problem, is the cause of the suffering. Now this is to be tested out. This is this teaching of the Four Noble Truths is the kind of formula to use for investigation. Because it's through this awakened consciousness that you recognize liberation, or the deathless. So, in this word recognize the deathless, like in the Third Noble Truth, the cessation of suffering, Nirodha Satya, recognizing or realizing the end of suffering is this. So it's recognizing the deathless. The deathless then can only be recognized. You can't find it. It's reality. So you awaken to the real. You don't find it by looking for it. Immediately you try to conceive the deathless or anything. Whatever you conceive, that's not it. It's beyond conception, perception, but it's recognizable. It's the real or reality. So what the Buddha is actually encouraging us is awakening to reality, awaken to the real. So this isn't even Buddhism as such, is it? This is outside even the convention of what we generally regard as Buddhist. Except that the Lord Buddha was very clear in pointing to reality, like the Pali Sutta teachings, the Four Noble Truths, and those teachings are pointers. They're not doctrines and positions one takes about oneself or society or how things should or shouldn't be. What they are is they're pointers, always pointing what? To the present. Paccuppanna Dhamma. Now when say awaken to the real, then how do you do that? How can you figure it out how to awaken right now? You think, well, Ajahn Sumedho keeps saying, Paccuppanna Dhamma, enlightenment here and now, awaken to the real. What are you supposed to do? How do you do that? So then immediately you're kind of grasping what I'm saying. You kind of get the idea, get the words. Here and now, awaken here and now, the deathless. But they're pointers, they're nothing in themselves. They're merely empty perceptions in themselves. Their value is not in themselves alone, but what am I pointing at? So awaken here and now is just doing it, being this awakened reality here and now. And as you start thinking, well, how do you do it, then that very doubt, that very questioning, you can be aware of. Now thinking about this does lead you to a sense of it's just too, confusion. You try to figure it out intellectually and you'll just get terribly confused. Because what I'm pointing at is not towards concepts or words or things or objects. And the thinking process is a conditioned function of the mind. So, it deals with worldly things. The thinking process is about phenomena, about whether it's big or small, red or blue, on and on like that, and which is the best and worst. Conditioned phenomena has all kinds of qualities and quantities. It can be good or bad, right or wrong, heaven or hell. Conditioned phenomena is sape sankharani, all conditions are impermanent. So phenomena, we live with these phenomena. The human body, this is a phenomena. So being aware of it as a sankhara rather than as my body, it's different, isn't it? When I think of it as mine, this body is mine, then it brings back all the sense of what I look like, gender of the body, the age of the body, the size, the perceptions of it, whether I see it in terms of critical mind or vanity or whatever. The sense of I am this body brings up all these various conditions. So when I don't question this, when I merely operate from I am this body, then the world around me is very different. Self-consciousness, age, I'm getting old man. The size, the color, and all that becomes, how I perceive the world around me. The world I create around me can generate from this basic assumption that I am actually, this is my reality, is this body, is what I am. So in the Paccuppanna Dhamma, instead of assuming that I am this body, and I've got to convince myself I'm not really the body, because sometimes we do that. We think, well, the body's really not self. I agree. And so we may even like the idea of it and agree with the body's not self, but we still operate as if it is the self. We can still live our monastic life fully committed to our bodies as ourselves, and that we've just got to let go, and we shouldn't be vain. Vanity's not good to look into the mirror and kind of try to make yourself look attractive or whatever. We shouldn't be doing that. The body is a supa. It's not beautiful. It's filled with unpleasant things. A disgusting bag of skin filled with pus and blood. And we can convince ourselves that we're just a bag of unbeautiful conditions. But that's still a self, isn't it? If, it's still operating, whether you think I'm the most beautiful human being on the planet or just a disgusting bag of skin, it's still the thinking process. So that's where, when we use the 4 postures for meditation, kind of basic meditation, sitting, standing, walking, lying down, the 4 Iryabhata. Now, it's just a skillful means, but it's a way of observing the body that isn't coming from owning it, of identifying with it. It's not trying to ignore it or reject it, deny it, but to change one's attitude from identity and attachment to observing the reality of right now, Paccuppanna, this body's sitting here, it's like this. So when I remind myself in this way, then it's reflecting rather than trying to describe my body and what it's like, how I feel when I'm sitting, and that it's just this. It's very simple. Not even interesting. There's nothing. It's just sitting here. There's pressure. If you begin to notice, the pressure, the temperature of the room, how it affects your body or your robes or your clothes, and the position of your legs and hands and so forth. But this is a way of changing, beginning to change from I've got to have perfect posture, or my sitting posture isn't very good, or forming views and opinions about how you should sit, or feeling that you're not very good at it, or just trying to ignore it. Maybe sometimes we like the sitting posture because if we don't have too much discomfort, we can easily get samadhi, where we can forget all about the body for a while, get into a nice mental state, and the body disappears. You don't have to. You don't notice it. It doesn't come into consciousness if you concentrate on a mental object. So we there's one way of just ignoring it or getting rid of it, or just trying to make it do what we want. How many of you try to control and force and compel and make your bodies sit a certain way, or really use willpower to make your body do what you think it should? And it's still coming from Sakya Ditti, isn't it? From this, it's my body and I've got to make it do what I want. Or maybe I don't like my body and I don't want to be bothered with it. It's too coarse, it's too painful. And some people don't like their bodies at all, so they want to go into nice mental states where the body is forgotten. So that's why this reflection on Paccuppanna Dhamma is the thing to remind yourself. Here and now. This you can do all the time, whether you're sitting, standing, walking, lying down, whether you're walking from one place to another, eating your food, or whatever. This is not meditation as some kind of technique that you need the right conditions to do. It's a continuous, ongoing reminder. Now, when consciousness is another, what we're experiencing now, that we don't create. I mean, the body, you didn't make your body or create it. You create your identities with it, and that. But actually, the body is a condition that's natural. It's like everything else in nature. It was born, and it grows up, gets old, and dies, just like every other creature. And so this body is, it's a natural condition. It's not mine. It's not personal. Then we create ourselves with my body. This is something you create out of ignorance. Consciousness is Dhammachat, or natural. It's nature. Consciousness, you don't create it. It's not personal. It's not like my consciousness and your consciousness as if they were separate. Unless I believe that. If I'm convinced that my consciousness is separate from yours, then that's how I see the world, me as opposed to you, or me as something separate from you. Or you have your consciousness and I have my. Well, that's not natural, is it? That's a creation out of identity. My consciousness is in my body, and I'm a different person from you, and I'm here and you're there. And so we go by how things appear, how we're conditioned to perceive the world around us, creators of this world around us. So what I'm doing now is reflecting on the here and now, consciousness here and now, before you create yourself into it. Like just being aware of the body, the sitting posture, or the standing, or walking, or lying down. But the being aware of it. The body is in the consciousness, isn't it? Is consciousness in the body? Or is the body in consciousness? This is a conundrum to contemplate. The very fact that right now I can be aware of my body as a whole body sitting here on this seat. It's not in my brain, is it? It's not, body's not in my brain. Actually, it's in the consciousness. Consciousness doesn't seem to have any boundary. So mindfulness, then, being mindful, being awake here and now, is this gate or this door or this opportunity we have in the Paccuppan, in the present moment, to remember the deathless, the real, amatta Dhamma, the deathless reality. This is it, here and now. Now, reminding yourself this, like I've used this sound of silence for this, because that's what when I let go of everything, that's what seems to be present. I don't create it. It's not a creation or a fantasy or a nimitta or anything. So then, affirming this is the deathless reality here and now. Now it's like informing also, because many people have insights into this reality, mystical experiences or moments of insight that you've had in the past, but then you forget it, and then you think you have to go on a special retreat in order to get it back. So we cling to the memories, like this is something to warn you about how we create memories about insight. So the first year when I was a samanera in Nong Khai, this was before I met Ajahn Chah, I had a lot of insight. These empty moments, mystical insight. And then when I became a bhikkhu and went to stay with Ajahn Chah, I remembered I had all these insights when I was a samanera at Wat Nön Panau in Nong Khai. And I wanted them again, because the memories, some of them were so marvelous, kind of blissful realities that I experienced, and then the memory of it created the desire to have it again. So in order to have it again, I have to recreate the situation. So finally, I felt I couldn't do this at Wat Pah Pong, where you were much more active. You had to go out on alms round and work in the afternoons, and it wasn't like where I was when I was a samanera. I was alone most of the time for a year in a little hut. So I didn't have to deal with work or distraction. Or talking to people. I didn't, there's nobody could speak English in the monastery. So I just sat there with myself for a year. And through just the process of patiently enduring because it's not easy to live with yourself for a year. It's hard work in the beginning, because you're conditioned to, the conditioning wasn't that way. All the repressed emotions and that of a lifetime of 30 years started coming up into consciousness, and that was like living in hell for a few months, beginning a few months. Then after a year, I became a bhikkhu. Then I remembered these blissful memories, these great insights I had. And so I wanted to recreate the situation. So I went and asked Ajahn Chah to let me go, and I went off to this place in Sukulnakorn province, of Pupek Mountain, and tried to recreate the experience, and I couldn't. It was one of the worst years, 6 months I spent on this mountain, trying to get the deathless through remembering what I'd experienced when I was a samanera. It doesn't work. You can't do it that way. So then also I began to, see the practical reality of being a bhikkhu, of training with Luang Por Chah at Wat Pa Pong, of just fitting into their structure, of just doing everything their way, because it was a very strict Vinaya monastery, and here I was a foreigner, an American, who couldn't speak the language, trying to live in a Buddhist monastic community, that I didn't really understand, and I wasn't used to being so restrained and having to do, obey and follow and submit and that to external things. But something in me, intuitively, I knew that's what I had to do. It's an intuition. It wasn't another kind of ego trip that I've got to prove I can become a really good bhikkhu, to prove that Americans can do it. It was even though such perceptions might have arisen at moments, that wasn't why I was doing it. So then the Luang Por Chah is always about Paccuppanna Dhamma. So even with the limited, the first year learning the Thai language and that, the limited ability to comprehend, and yet because of that emphasis, that powerful emphasis of Ajahn Chah and the training, the monastic training, you couldn't really, if you're going to stay there, somehow you kind of understood it. Otherwise, I couldn't have lived in such a place. If it was just, me trying to get my way and do things my way, I had to submit, to surrender, to conform. And conformity was something I'd resisted ever since I was a teenager. I remember reading Alberto Moravia's novel, The Conformists, when I was in high school. And the Italian writer, and about this man that conformed everything, and I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to be an individual, a nonconformist. So I perpetuated this illusion of myself as a nonconformist. The romantic image of rebellion against authority, against convention, against the rigidity of morality, and as it had been imposed on me through the religion or the society. So this identity of being a nonconformist, then find myself in a situation like Wat Pa Pong, where it was all conforming, the most extreme kind of conforming you could imagine. But it wasn't a tyrannical. It wasn't for tyranny. It wasn't through threats or slave-like tyranny. It had a point to it. Paccuppanna Dhamma was the point, wasn't it? That was it. It was about awakened here and now. So then my resistance to the conformity, my critical mind could really, I could find all kinds of things I didn't like about it, didn't agree with, and that. But that wasn't it. It was, I could, nobody held a gun to my head. I could have left any time I wanted, but intuitively I knew I wouldn't. Because I was beginning to get the point, just see this stubbornness and conceit and my resistance and fear and sense of self and conceits and all that were mirrored, were reflected in consciousness. So then the practice, the practicality of the lifestyle, of monastic life, of the Vinaya training, and that Luang Por Chah, that was his way of living a human life in a continuous way, a kind of convention that one could, live for a lifetime. And pursue and constantly remind oneself of Paccuppanna Dhamma. And so that means that, and that's pretty much what I've done ever since, is no matter how difficult or onerous or whatever life becomes on the conditioned level, the main thing, the practice is Paccuppanna Dhamma. How does it, you look here, rather than trying to control it and try to make it what you want or what you think it should be. So that's where even when monasteries seem to fall apart or things are going all awry and whatnot, it's still Paccuppanna Dhamma. It doesn't have. We don't have to have a really good monastic community living in harmony, and all these are best ideals. But even when it's all going mad, it's still Paccuppanna Dhamma. So this is where the emphasis is on this Upanayaka Dhamma, Ehipasiko Upanayaka Bhajatang, to be realized by yourself. This is it. No one can do this for you. So it's this is the value of this convention, is that it's not an end in itself. It's an expedient means, like any other convention. But it does, it's managed to survive 2,552 years, which is, in our terms, human ways of thinking and sense of time and history, that's a success story. It's managed to survive, through all kinds of successes and failures, empires and kingdoms and affluence and depressions. And the teaching is still pure. It hasn't been corrupted, hasn't been changed in any way. Still the Four Noble Truths is just exactly the first sermon of the Buddha. So it's not like it's a different teaching for the age. This is the teaching that we use, and then those of us who take on the precept life, then this is how we live our lives within this society at this time, at this age. And of course it's an alms mendicant form, so it's dependent on, we make ourselves dependent on the goodness of other people. So when we take the precepts, we give up our rights to hold money, own things, and we give up all kinds of rights to live our life in our own way and do what we want. Now that can be seen as some kind of personal, saintly thing we must do. But that's not the point, is it? It's not that I should give up, relinquish and surrender to the form. That's not it. It's not about me doing it. It's using the form for reflecting, getting to see the results of attachment to Sakkaya Ditthi, Silabbata Paramasa, Vicikicca, the first three fetters. So we're not trying to become ideal monks and nuns or saints, or just trying to. It's not about self-improvement or anything like that. It's using this convention for reflection in the present. So whether you're being praised or blamed, or you're feeling healthy or sickly, you're feeling inspired or depressed, you're feeling happy or miserable, that's not it, is it? It's not about finding happiness as a kind of permanent state, but awakening to reality, Paccuppanna Dhamma. Now the retreat time then is it's a great opportunity devoted to just this. And then the lay communities come here to help support it in the way that we can relinquish a lot of maybe duties and that we might have when it's not retreat time. But it does take this determination. Like I have books, I still have notebooks where I just write down things like silence. I have notebooks where I just write silence, 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 just to keep my centered in this sound of silence, to where it carries me. I get so used to being in this state of silence, in this natural awareness. And then affirming it until, this is it, this is the reality. And it's not like it's anything at all that I could describe or point to or teach. It's to be recognized, realized. It's bajjitang vetidapo vinaya, to be realized individually. So when you ask me to uplift you or do it for you, I can't do it. Not that I don't want to. It's I can't. So Ajahn Chah couldn't do it. The Buddha couldn't do it to his disciples. The best, what they call an Ajahn or teacher is pointing to Paccuppanna Dhamma. So, like a good teacher encourages us to awaken, doesn't try to intimidate us or reinforce the delusions of a self. So, I really try not to reinforce self-delusions in you. I don't know how successful I am, but it's not my intention to tell you how to practice or how you should do things, or what's wrong with you, or anything else, or to praise you or condemn you, but to encourage awakened attention in the present. Now this teaching is for human beings. It's for Deva Manusanang. It's for Devatas too. But I've never identified with that particular realm. I've definitely, on a human level, feel more human than deva. And so, but this manusya is a Pali word for human. But it is about dukkha and its origin, cessation, and the way of non-suffering. And so this isn't about finding happiness physically or emotionally, having security, emotional security, or physical health, or anything like that. It's about awakening, and so that whatever happens, because each one of us has to endure through a lifetime of our own karmic inheritance. I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, abide supported by my karma, and so forth. That's another reflection. So, and it's different. Karmas are different from different people. We have the common unicity of consciousness. That's where we're one, is in consciousness. Physically, we're separate. We can't be one physically. So, so I'm sitting here and you're sitting there. It's just the way it is in the conditioned plane. But in the oneness, then the oneness is consciousness, because that is not about me sitting here and you sitting there. It has no boundary. Where does it cease? It's beyond conception. Try to conceive consciousness, and describe it. You can recognize it. It's just this, isn't it? It's not something I can describe, but it's certainly real. I'm not making it up. So this consciousness, then we divide into the male, female genders on the physical level, and then individually our karmas, whether we're, how old we are and what nationality, social background, and so forth, is all different. No two are the same. So we have to experience our karma, and even in the scriptures, the Lord Buddha, lived after his enlightenment till he was 80, and then had the results of his karma. He didn't get out of it. In the scriptures, you can read it. He had his own individual karma but his relationship to it was then of reflecting on it, not attaching to it. Non-attachment. So the only way we can not attach to vipaka karma that arises in the present is through this awareness practice, mindfulness. So that this reality here and now, paccuppanna Dhamma, it's as simple as this. This is liberation. This is freedom. Attaching to the conditions out of ignorance means then we're just whirled back. It's like a whirlpool. As soon as you forget paccuppanna Dhamma and you get carried, you're kind of whirled back into the vortex of samsara. It's just sort of boom, you're born again into this sense of me and mine and what I like and don't like and so forth. So then the training yourself, reminding yourself, here and now, reality here and now, and affirming this, so that you're kind of like you're continuously affirming here and now, this is it, until you really, you know this on a deep level. It's like real insight, gut knowledge, where you know this. It's no longer conceptual or just fleeting fragments through peaceful conditions supporting some kind of peaceful mental states. You know this even in the middle of the battlefield or whatever is happening to you. Monastic life it's boring, and we do have our relationship to forms and the way we attach to monastic perceptions. But all this is to be, encouraged you to awaken to it. Don't make a problem about it. Use it for reflection, so that our lives as samanas are simple. We're not trying to work out things and try to solve all our relationship problems and views about how things should be in modern life and modern values and Western democratic values and human rights and all the rest. There's nothing, there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not the life of a samana. It's not about human rights or how things should be. It's about here and now and seeing the suffering of being caught up into all the intimidating ideals, imperatives of our own minds, of the people around us, what our parents want us to do, what we assume society wants us to do, what you think I want you to do, or whatever, Always the Paccuppanna Dhamma is the pointing, and it's up to you now. This is what you do with this is up to you. How you use this convention, that's, the best I can do is describe or encourage a skillful use of the convention, but how you use it is up to you. I'm not going to stand, and spy on you and kind of scold you every time you might not keep a rule properly or whatever. I'm not a Gestapo or a FBI agent, or I don't bug your rooms or kutis, because it is about awakening through faith, through confidence in yourself, not through fear. Set up a spy system and intimidate you, then you might obey all the rules because you're afraid. I can put the fear of hell into your mind and, make you obey and be a good person because you're frightened of being bad. And you think Ajahn Sumedho has his eyes on you. I remember sometimes the Western monks with Luang Por Chah, remember one used to think Ajahn Chah was spying on him all the time. And that whatever he was doing, Ajahn Chah knew exactly what was going on in his mind. So anyway, he asked Ajahn Chah about this. He said, "You know everything, don't you? You know exactly." And no, I don't. I mean, it's how I'm got to be like this because Luang Por Chah knows exactly what's going on in my mind all the time. So then we behave because we're afraid Luang Por Chah might, if we have a unpleasant thought, a dirty thought or something, Luang Por Chah will know it. And then he'll be, point the finger. But this is a projection, it's self, sakkaya ditthi, isn't it? Luang Por Chah knows everything that's going on in my mind. Or whether you do that with me, I don't know. I swear some of you do. But it's not like that. It's not. You can't, nobody's like that. It'd be awful to live in this community if I knew what was going on in your minds all the time. I'd left a long time ago. So this is, how you project your creations of seniority, of bhikkhus, thiladharas, lay people, men, women, all that. Those are projections that might be habitual, conditioned projections we believe in. We never question. Maybe we totally believe in our own creations. So this is an invitation to awaken to Dhamma, which we don't create. We awaken to it. We recognize it. And so that's like taking refuge in Dhamma rather than in ideas, views, opinions, or the assumption that I actually am this person as an ongoing, I'm this person all the time. So, I find it quite interesting to just, observe how my personality changes according to even the weather. Whether it's sunny and warm or cold and wet, or what time of day or night, or how I'm feeling. When I'm feeling healthy and vigorous, or sickly and weak, or tired, my personality changes. I'm talking to juniors or seniors or lay people or nuns or whatever, the personality changes. But that which is aware, conditions change, whether you're at an interfaith meeting, or, would I talk like this at an interfaith meeting? Your personality changes to your interfaith personality. And I stopped going to them because I found them pretty boring, actually, having to be so incredibly tolerant all the time. But the, grand and magnanimous states of mind. But in terms of getting to the causes and the freedom from suffering, this you find out through your own investigation, through awakened conscious mindfulness. So I offer this for your reflection.